Hi, I'm Rob Patz.
And I'm Kristen Stanton.
And this is the Rob and Kristen Show. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Rob and Kristen Show. We're so glad you're here. I feel like I have to... Are you there, Kristen?
I'm here. But aren't these flowers just beautiful? Rob got them for me for Valentine's Day.
That's right. So now you know that the show is actually taped right after Valentine's Day. So they look beautiful. Shout out to our local place that did a great job for me, and they always do. And, you know, we were talking and we joked prior to Valentine's Day about getting a pillow for your wife. And I still think it's a good idea. But here's the deal. Maybe you messed up for Valentine's Day and you slept on the sofa. For future reference, you should have a pillow from My Pillow as a spare pillow that you can use. In fact, Mike has some great deals. He's calling them mega deals right now, and some awesome deals on different things at his website, mypillow.com. Use the promo code ATV. In fact, right now, on all orders, he has free shipping.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, those are, things that are important. Free shipping is great because that's why I like Amazon. But it's really cool. Some great deals right now. And right now, my favorite feature on the show, I think could be a whole show by itself. It's 5 things we think you should know. And I'm going to start it off with a whale of a story.
A whale of a story,
It's a whale of a story. And we are going to go to Chile. Not the restaurant. They're not sponsoring this. But we're going to go to the country of Chile. And this interesting story, 24-year-old, and he's out with his dad. And all of a sudden, he gets swallowed up. Yes. He was probably thinking biblical proportions at the moment. Thankfully, it was a humpback whale, and they can't swallow humans. And so you see the video. It's really kind of cool, because all of a sudden, he's... and then he's gone, and then all of a sudden, he spit him out.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And the funny thing about this, which we didn't know until we started researching this is not the first time.
No, they said that it happened in California in 2020. I mean, this is nuts, but they did say that the humpback whales, they're not human predators.
No.
But they have a very narrow throat, and so they normally cannot swallow a human or a mammal the size of a human. So I'm sure that was not what was going through their mind.
And see, the funny thing is he said he doesn't really remember any of that. And that's crazy because you're sitting there thinking, it's gotten dark in here in a hurry.
Well, maybe he got knocked out temporarily.
Could have been.
Got his breath taken away, got knocked out.
Can you imagine just going dark and going underwater and all of a sudden you see him.
And these humpback whales can weigh up to 84 tons.
Yes, almost as much as me. After Valentine's Day weekend, I feel so interesting story though, and I mean, kind of, it seems like I get all the stories, man, about the water. Dude, we were out kayaking and this big gnarly whale came up and it was biblical, man.
Well, I get the love stories.
Yes.
And so our love story for this week is in Brazil. There is a couple in Brazil that has now been married for a little bit more than 84 years. They are officially the longest living married couple alive right now. So
isn't that cool?
It is.
84 years. We haven't been married that long, so I think of all those years out. We're not going to make it to 84.
I'm having a hard time envisioning this because he's 105 and she's 101. That is amazing.
I want to know their eating habits. I want to know what they did for exercise. My aunt, who is I'm not going to tell you how old she is because she will find out by watching this. But let's just put it this way: she's plus 90, and she still works out every day for a half hour. So I would love to know what they do. Not that I'm going to do any of those things.
Yeah.
Because this next story feels like me. We're going to the great state of Nebraska, and you know my love language is chocolate cake.
Yes.
This possum and we're on the same page. Going to Nebraska, and it's interesting. If you're not from the Midwest, you probably will not understand this, but in the wintertime, we sometimes put stuff either outside or in the garage to keep it cold.
Right.
So they were having a family gathering. There was a Costco cake, and they put it outside because there was a lot of people there, a lot of stuff going on. And they kept it cool outside. And chocolate cake from Costco is amazing. Just ask the possum who ate a whole chocolate cake. And the funny thing is, the wife, it was, I think, a son or something, went outside, found the possum laying with chocolate smears all around on the deck furniture. Obviously, he's my hero. To be honest with you, I've always thought, what would it be like to eat a whole chocolate cake from Costco? Not that I would do it, but I've always wondered kind of what that would be like. Of course, they are very thankful. They were worried about him. He was groaning, which, I mean, come on. You ate a whole chocolate cake.
Yeah. They really were worried.
Yes.
So they did call the local Humane Society, and the possum was treated.
Yes. He is currently in rehab from all the sugar and stuff. They said they've been feeding him foods to get him back to normal because obviously, I mean, goodness, can you imagine that amount of sugar? Thankfully, he is going to be okay, and they plan to release him back into the wild. But he is obviously a possum stealer. He's a cake thief.
Well, it's a good thing that he didn't have to go up in front of the judge in Michigan then.
Yes.
For petty theft. He stole an entire chocolate cake from these people. There is a judge up in Michigan that is coming down hard, kind of, on some criminals that have been caught stealing. And so he thought, and rather than just letting them go or giving them just some normal, ordinary community service for these misdemeanor theft crimes, shoplifting. That's what we're talking about, shoplifting. Mm-hmm. So he decided, instead of just any old community service, that he was going to put a sponge in their hand and make them wash cars in the Walmart parking lot. Now, everybody knows that if you're washing a car up in this area, up in Michigan, everybody will know if you are washing cars in March or April at this Walmart parking lot in Michigan that you have been found guilty of.
Well, and it's cold too. It's
Yes.
That poor possum. He'd have a hard time because they got little hands. Just think how long it would take him to do it.
Oh yeah, it'd be cool. But I think that this is awesome. This judge says, not everybody is a hardened criminal, but there does need to be a consequence to your crime. So he decided to put them to work, and he calls it, or the press or somebody has started calling it, the Walmart wash penalty.
So we keep to the theme of thievery, thieves, and other things of wrongdoing, dastardly deeds. Over 100,000 eggs went missing in Pennsylvania, and that's no yolk. Actually, it's a lot of yolks. It could be yolked. Maybe it's unequally yolked. I don't know. But hey, listen, so this is the story. 100,000 have gone missing. And of course, right now, with all the shortages in eggs are very valuable. It's never been heard of before. The detectives that are involved say they're going to crack the case at some point.
That's a good one.
I was waiting like the whole show for that.
So they don't have any leads, though. The last we checked.
They've been scrambling to find some leads. But it hasn't been over easy.
Okay. How many more jokes do you
I've
have
got
about
lots,
this
but
one?
we don't have that much time. This has been fun. Hey, that's 5 things we think you should know here on the Rob and Kristen Show. And of course, not only do I make Kristen smile a lot, this next interview does, because it's talking about an author. In fact, we're going to throw you to that interview right now. You can always tell the smile on my wife's face. That must mean that we are going to do an interview with an author. And it's just always fun part of the show.
We are going to do an interview with an author today. And I'm telling you, Rob, she has won more awards than what I can even remember to list. She has sold over 1.5 million books. Can you imagine 1.5 million books? She's written over 60 novels. I don't know how anybody comes up with 60 novels to write, but super interesting. I can't wait to introduce our audience to her. It's just a lot of fun. And welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Just think, I haven't even read 60 books in my life, let alone write 60 books. Incredible to have you with us.
How in the world do you come up with ideas for 60 books? And I'm sure you're not done. I'm sure there's more than 60 in your brain someplace,
Well,
but how do you do that?
it's a funny story. The very first writing conference I went to, I asked the same question. I decided I wanted to be a novelist, and I said, "How do you come up with your ideas?" And a couple of novelists there, one of them was Diane Mills. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she said, "You just start asking, what if?" And so I started working on that. And now the problem is that I can't shut the ideas off. Everything is an idea, everywhere I look. And it just, it's just a natural, I've trained my brain to come up with stories. And so everything is a story. And, I'm constantly looking for ideas, and I'm reading the news, or, we'll watch biographies or something historical or whatever it is. And something will just hit me and go, yeah, I need to look into that. That could be a story. So I have a big file, a list of all potential ideas. So I just keep that sort of way. Yeah.
Super interesting. So do you normally come up, when you were talking about asking the what ifs, do you normally start with a character, an idea for a plot, or a setting, or it just depends?
Well, it just depends, but I mostly lean towards the setting for whatever reason. I just we lived in Texas, and we would travel to Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana, and I just fell in love with the mountains, and I fell in love with beautiful places. And so that, for whatever reason, I don't know if that's weird or not, but it just inspires me. So when I see a new place, I'm like, oh, I need to set a story here. So then my mind, I'll just start coming up with the potential characters, and as I'm working on the story, I start developing the idea for the plot, and who the bad guys are and all that. So really, for me, it starts with setting. I know a lot of authors, it's the plot or the characters, and so I might be a little bit unusual in that, but it just inspires me for whatever reason, and it's all about creativity and getting the creative juices going, right? And so that's what does it for me.
So how do you, when you've written that many books, how do you keep from overlapping ideas from book to book?
It's not easy, and yeah, I mean, that happens. I'm like, oh, I did this before. Oh, I did that before. Oh, I did this before. But I was recently watching. I love the Mission Impossible movies. All the action adventure, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was just mulling this over, like, I'm already doing this. Can I do this again? And in the movie, like two. I think it was a back-to-back movie, or maybe it was the third movie of one of a series. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he did this again. They did it again. So you can't do it again. You just do it again differently. You just have to make it completely different, because there's only so many ways to blow up a bridge, or there's so many ways,
Right?
there's only so many ways to do it. So you just have to have it in a different setting and just make it feel different. And so, but yeah, that is an issue, because I've already done this plot before, got to do something different. And that is an issue with titles too. Imagine, there's only so many titles out there, and Revell, Baker Publishing has so many books. So we've got to make sure we're finding a title that's new and different and fresh. So it's not easy.
Right. So, question that has just been roaming around in my mind, because you write these suspense thrillers, a lot of them. And so you have to create these bad guys, these antagonists to the story that are really just aren't very nice people at all. If you can think, and I know you don't like hard questions because you're a writer and you like to think about them, but I'm going to ask you off the top of your head,
Hard question.
all of the characters, the antagonists, not your protagonists, but your antagonists, of all of the characters that you have created, Is there one that you created where you created their character so good that you couldn't stand them as you were writing the story?
Oh, wow. That is a hard question. Let me just preface this with my romantic suspense novels, I love the suspense, intrigue, and thriller, but I don't really go very dark with them at all because I don't like to read a very dark story. And I mean, they're very, some people are like, oh, I can't read this before I go to sleep at night. But I don't want to dig into the research can be,
Mhm.
when I'm looking at a villain, I don't want to have to dig into too much research or get too much in their head because yes, it can be disturbing, and I don't want to be disturbed in that way. But there was a book, I think it's Always Look Twice, and I had a villain in that, and I actually wrote his point of view in that book. I think that's maybe the only point of view. I just had little blurbs here and there, short chapters here and there with his point of view, and so that's why he comes to mind probably because I had to get more into his head
Mhm.
to figure out his motivation and just, to have the words and thoughts flow from him. And I didn't like being there. I
Yeah.
don't like being there. So I think he called himself the judge. So I'll just leave it at that.
So when you're writing the books and you're creating the characters and the plot and there's the conflict between your characters
Mhm.
at times, um, do you like because you're creating them, do you feel the conflict as they're having an argument or having a fight about something? Do you feel the conflict internally? And if so, how is that how you reach a resolution, how you resolve that conflict in your book?
I do feel it. And that I believe is why, we talked about villains, why I don't like to write them too dark because I feel it and I feel it all the way through. And I think it's important for a writer, to be emotionally committed and for me, I live um, through my characters vicariously. I'm just become who they are. And so, yes, I live it. I think that's why in my books I hate killing people. And I mean, but
Uh-huh.
I've got to kill somebody. Somebody's got to die. But I feel it so much, and so
Mhm,
and I think it also takes so much emotional energy, right?
mhm.
So I can only write when I've got the emotional energy to do. Sometimes I'll finish a session and I'm like, you know what, this next scene is going to be very emotionally draining, so I'm just going to have to put it aside and start it the next day. But I think if we want readers to feel those emotions, then we have to also feel them as we're writing the book.
Mhm. So tell me about your new book that's out,
You're going to hold it up. I'll hold it up too. Oh, I got
Storm
the
Warning.
yeah, I
So
got the
te
one with the glittery letters. See, this is the final copy, right?
Oh. So
Yes.
tell me about the book. Tell me about it takes place at least in it opens up off the Washington coast.
Hmm.
So tell me, why did you pick Washington for this book? And tell our viewers a little bit about the story, but don't give too much away.
Right. Thank you for saying that because I feel like people always want it. I'm like, no, I can't give it away. Um, well,
No, we
it's the
want them to go buy the book.
Yes, yes. It's the first book in my Hidden Bay series, fictional bay called Hidden Bay, and I have wanted for a very long time to set a series on the Washington coast. It's part of the Olympic Peninsula, and it's just stunning and beautiful, and a rocky coast, waves crashing, sea stacks, and wilderness and forest and a rainforest, and just I love nature, and that's what inspires me to write stories. So for the first book, I have, in fact, the whole series really is about a storm watching lodge or a lodge on the coast where people come during the wintertime in the first book to watch storms. And so in Storm Warning, we have the biggest storm of the decade. We have the king tide, a big king tide, everything converging at the same time. And my main character, Remy Grant, is working there as running the lodge, and she is a former military photographer that she's missing some days in her past, and she knows she's in danger. So she found her way to this lodge where she's hiding. And enter my hero, Hawk Beckett, and he is a former military helicopter pilot, one of the Night Stalkers team, and they're the group that delivers Navy SEALs where they need to go. They just can fly anything, anywhere, at any time. And so he's brought a lot of baggage with him, and so they meet And then the next thing you know is that there is someone there trying to kill her, and there's someone wanting her to remember before it's too late. And so you throw all of that together with the storm of the decade in the wilderness, and there's just, lots of intrigue, lots of cloak and dagger and mystery and suspense, and then a romance too between two very strong heroic people. So I had a lot of fun writing it. I enjoyed it.
Well, talk about a cliffhanger. I think you've left our viewers with a cliffhanger, so they're
I
going
hope
to have to
so.
go out and buy the book now, or go get it from the library or whatever, wherever they get
Yeah.
their books.
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite book that you've written? Because you've written a lot of them. So, what's your personal favorite?
Well, I think a lot of authors have the same answer as the book that I just finished, or the book that I'm just writing. And I really love Storm Warning because it's a little bit of a psychological thriller too. Because when you bring in someone who has amnesia, a missing part, and we learned in the book that our brains can lie to us through our
Mhm.
memories. So there's a lot that I brought into this book that I haven't explored before, just that psychological element. So I really love that. And I brought in kind of a little bit of a gothic tone, because how are you not going to have that? You've got a storm watching lodge on a cliff, and a storm on the rocky coast. So this one, and then next to that, I guess probably my gosh, that is hard to choose from. Cold Light of Day, Missing Alaska, I love that, and then Hidden in the Night, or two for my last series. So with each new book, I guess I fall in love with the book I'm writing. That was a long answer to a short question.
No, that's it's actually a really great answer. How can you love one book so much and not like your other ones? You created them. So
Right.
I have
hopefully you like
I
all
have
of
a
them.
question, because not being a reader, but every once in a while I want to pop in and so people remember I'm on the show.
Right.
And so here's my question: as a writer, who would you say influenced your style and who you are? I'm sure you read people prior to starting to write.
That's a really tough question, because like Kristen was sharing beforehand, I have been an avid reader my entire life. So how can I just pick one writer? I did spend a lot of my teenage years reading Victoria Holt, trying to think, Phyllis Whitney,
Yes.
Gothic romance novels. So I feel like they probably have a huge influence on me, because romantic suspense is where I'm writing. And especially in this Storm Warning book, I really brought in some of that from the early years reading, a little bit of the Gothic, because I've always wanted to write a story with a mansion on a cliffside. So
Oh, sure.
there's just too many to list.
So, how much research do you have to do for a book like Storm Warning when you're talking about a character who has missing time in their life,
Mhm.
and you're really talking about some things that are going on the brain? Do you have to do research? Do you talk to professionals? How do you develop that?
I do more research. It takes me longer to do the research than it does to write the book and to edit it. I mean, I do so much research, and I explore every avenue, including talking to experts. In the case of Storm Warning, I know a lot about the brain, because my son has an illness that affects his brain, and I have spent many, many hours reading so much about neurology and the psychology
Mhm,
behind it, and everything. And so I think that I was kind of tapping into that with this book,
mhm.
and exploring the lost memory, and kind of just putting it all together. But yes, in every book, I try to explore a topic that I haven't read myself out
Mhm.
there, something new and interesting for readers. And then I just really throw myself into research, and if I can talk to an expert, that all the better.
Mhm.
So I don't even know how people wrote books before the internet, honestly. I mean, the research would take them forever, getting the books that they needed and reading through all of them. So,
Right?
yeah.
So I've gotta ask you, because some of the authors we talk to, they only like to work on one project at a time, other ones have multiple projects at a time. So what category do you fall into?
Well, for probably all of my writing career, I have worked on, I've been writing for two, sometimes three publishers. For the last year, I have just only been writing for Revell for the last few
Mhm.
months. And so I'm just focusing on Revell right now and writing 2 books a year for them and just, you know, trying to throw myself. It is hard to write 2 books. And the older I get, yes. But I
So,
would write, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say I would write 1 book in the morning, 1 book in the afternoon, a different one. And then there's been times where I'm like, what are you doing in this book? You're supposed to be in that other book. That has happened to me. So,
Yeah, I can imagine. So you're working on the sequel to Storm Morning right now?
oh, I have already turned in book 3, and I'm starting on the first book of a
Oh,
brand new series next week. So, we have to work a year, 2 years ahead of publication, really. And I write a book in 6 months for Revell. So, bam, bam,
wow.
bam, bam, bam. It's like I just turned a book in this book 3 this last weekend, and I started on edits for the book I turned in before that, and that's for Perilous Tides book 2 and Storm in the Hidden Bay, and it's coming out in July. And so, yeah, it's just you're just you're writing, you're working on many books at the same time, all in different phases of the publishing process.
Wow. Okay, so last question, I think. Storm Morning with authors and or you in particular, since I'm supposing you can't speak for every author. How do you guys do you have input in the design of the cover, or does somebody do it and then do you give approval, or do you have no say in it at all?
Well, in the case of traditional publishing and working for with Revell, writing for Revell, we have to fill out what's called a TPQ document, which is Title Positioning Questionnaire. And it's during that time that I can put all of the information about my characters, about the backgrounds, about what covers I like, and just what I imagine I would like to see on the cover. And I create a Pinterest page to show all the pictures of possible, everything that I love that I would like to see on the cover. And then they do have an art department, and I think they do just a magnificent job on their covers. I have always loved Revell covers, and I've loved every one of my books. So I am happy to give them all the information and let them take over. And not only do they work on the cover, but they design the inside. I didn't even realize, the inside of a book has a design as well. So it is great to be writing for a publisher.
Yeah, they do amazing job, and I've told other authors, and I said it once, I've said it a bunch of times. They always tell you don't judge a book by its cover, but I always do, and the artwork is just amazing. I love it. I agree with you. I think Revell does a great job on their artwork. I've never seen a cover of any of their books that I don't like. So,
Right. And I think that covers are just as important as the inside of the book. So I am so excited to be partnered with somebody who can give me a cover that is going to make a reader look at it and pick it up and want to read it just because
yeah.
of the cover. So
Absolutely. Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show, and we want to encourage everybody out there to go pick up a copy of Storm Morning.
door warning.
There you go. Go pick up a copy. You can get it at your bookstore, get it from Amazon.com, or Rob had the QR code. You can scan the QR code and go find out more about our special guest here today on the Rob and Kristen Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Another fun interview here on the Rob and Kristen Show. That smile was the smile you saw during that whole interview because my wife loves books.
It was a lot of fun getting to sit down and talk with Elizabeth Goddard, a USA Today best-selling author, and her book actually releases today. So make sure you get on Amazon as soon as the show is over and go check it out.
That's it. And Kristen and I want you to go out and live an abundant life.